This is Hadrian Radio, coming to you from Free Catalonia, a KA radio production.
Good afternoon, Scotland. Bona tarda, Catalunya. This is Radio Hadrian, broadcasting to you on our second broadcast from north of the border, courtesy of KA Radio, the voice of new music. This week for our second broadcast, I'm going to be talking with David Raventós, my co-host. And as I mentioned last week at the end of the programme, David embarked on a hunger strike in May 2016 to support or to protest against the corruption and the deceit that surrounds both the Catalan and the Scottish independence movements. So today, David's going to tell his story. Some of you may already know some of it or part of it, and some of you may not know anything about it. So, David, I guess the first thing that I have to ask is, why a hunger strike? And why Scotland?
Well, by May 2016, after 25 years of fighting for independence and 3 years after having discovered the great deception both in Catalonia and Scotland, I realized that we live in fake democracies or mock democracies, which have the appearances of democracies, but actually they're not. They're just there to deceive us. So I realized that I had to use the fake democracy system we have, in which they cannot openly execute you or put you in prison. So I thought that a hunger strike was the perfect way to show that politicians, media, social media, and organizations, both in Scotland and Catalonia, work against independence while pretending to work for it. And I decided to bring Scotland also into it, first because I fell in love with the grassroots movement in Scotland before the referendum, and because both our countries have been dominated by old imperial empires like Great Britain and Spain for around 300 years, and also because there's tremendous links with a lot of persons like Humza Yousaf, Angus Brendan McNeill, Shona McAlpine, Gail Lithgow, Stephen Noon, Natalie McGarry, that have been around Catalonia, connected with people like Joan Vives, Elisenda Pelosi Anarque, or Victor Tarradellas, or Marc Gaffarot.
So you say that these people are connected with Catalonia, and they've been connected with Catalonia since before the referendum?
Yes, well, they have meetings here and meetings there, and some of them are contributors in media like Bella Caledonia, and they come here and they give conferences. If we really want independence, we really, contrary to what they said about we being better together with UK or with Spain, which is not true, because a relation of submission is never bad for the one which is oppressed. But Catalans and Scots, we really need to be together because it's a collaboration partnership. It's a partnership for freedom, and we have to make it together. We are stronger together, but just in this case.
Stronger together. Catalan and Scots independentists are better together. Okay, and a hunger strike is not something most of us would even think of or be prepared for. So how did you prepare for a hunger strike?
Well, I didn't prepare for it good enough. If I had to start again, I would have legal support and medical support that I didn't have back then. I had a small but very determined group of support. But basically it's a mental preparation. I mean, I knew I was doing it for the right reason, and I knew I was going to go to whatever lengths it took, because they lied to us, and they've made us believe by voting and marching we're gonna be independent. And I'm sorry to say, but it takes a bit more courage and a bit more determination to become independent. So I prepared my daughter, and I decided to do it no matter what pressure would be exerted on me by my friends. So I mentally got ready for it.
And how did you do this?
How did I do what?
How did you mentally prepare for being on a hunger strike? This is not something many people could do.
Yeah, but when you really believe in what you do, I mean, I have already done some therapeutic fasting, and some of them lasted for 20 years. Sorry, for 20
years?
for 20 days. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
For 20 days. But the question is, when you really have your heart in what you're doing, and when you realize what people in Scotland and Catalonia have suffered in the last 3 centuries, going on hunger strike, it doesn't seem such a tremendous sacrifice. It's just like a drop in the ocean.
So I guess in terms of preparing for it, it wasn't just the not eating; it was also the mental strength and the belief in what you were doing, and the strength that would, let's say, bolster you against the reactions you were going to get from people.
Yeah, but
so sorry, no, carry on.
Yeah, but I have to let it be known that for me it was not going from a nice life of leisure and comfort and this into doing a hunger strike. I had been slandered, threatened, insulted. People around me had been coerced into isolating me. They threatened me with bringing me to court with fake accusations of sexual harassment. They had been telling me for 3 years that they would contact some family members of mine to falsely have me interned in a mental institution. Who
do you mean by they?
Well, so-called independentist people, but that actually are only limited hangouts or gatekeepers. It's people that criticize the main players in the unionist or the processes field, but they're just like I wouldn't know the word, but it's like those that feed on dead animals. I mean, some of these people are just waiting for the process to independence to die, so they're gonna scavenge on the remains of the people who was not happy that we lost independence. And these people felt themselves threatened by somebody who was really for independence and who's denouncing the infiltration in both our countries. Then they decided to send these people. These people are like the first line of battle against me. So it's basically people going under Catalunya Acció or UPDIC or Solidaritat or the splinter groups that are supposed to be the more essentially pure independentists, those that go whistling at the Spanish anthem and criticizing Catalans of Spanish origin, or burning the king images, or doing all this kind of bravado actions that don't get us any closer to independence. On the contrary, they make people who's indecisive about it to be against independence, and the main attacks came from these people. That some of these people were spreading rumors through social media that I had a mental condition, which was not true.
That must have been quite distressing. I mean, so once you decided to embark on this hunger strike, and you've prepared yourself mentally, you have prepared your daughter. How old is your daughter?
It's 14 now. She was almost 13 when I started.
She was almost 13 when you started. And your family, you prepared them for this. Was it difficult for your family to accept?
Well, all this has been difficult for my family. First of all, we're very different, which doesn't mean better or worse. Every society needs stable people that manage to get countries and societies through normal times. And my family belongs to this group, which is very necessary in every society. And then every society also needs people that is ready to take risks in moments of turmoil, as it is the present situation both in Catalonia and Scotland now. So for them, the idea of the hunger strike was very, very stressy, and It has taken me some time to realize how hard it must have been for them, but now I do, and I'm mending things with them. For them, it was difficult because before the hunger strike, I had been under stress and duress. So I was not really centered in the day-to-day things. If you have to imagine it, for 3 years, you get threats and you have all kind of attacks, and you discover that people you consider your friends happen to be working for the enemy for the last 25 years, and you've been in 4 parties and the 4 of them are working for the enemy, and everything you believed, it's a lie. So it's not something that is very easy to stomach. So I was not in my best period, and they love me and they're good people, so they were suffering for me. So I think that pushing it to the hunger strike might have been very hard on them. So I'm sorry if I made them suffer.
So you pushed them probably to their limits.
Yes, because as I said, we're different kind of people.
And okay, once you had decided to embark on a hunger strike and you'd prepared for it, you'd let your family know this was going to happen. You had this small support group of people, and you started on May the 3rd, 2016, Tuesday, May the 3rd. And I believe you started it at Torre Barcelona. Why did you start there?
Well, I did for a number of reasons. First, Torre Barcelona is a pretty high building, considering Barcelona is not a high-rise city. Barcelona is the name of the capital of Catalonia, as most of you will know. It also happens to host the seat of the British consulate in
Torre Barcelona.
In Torre Barcelona, the British consulate is there. So it was a good place to complain against non-independence in Scotland nowadays. That's also where Group Godó being a royal name. I mean, Godó is related to royalty in Spain, and they happen to be a powerful media group, and there's also powerful companies there. So it was a place that at once it has the name of the capital city of Catalonia, it is a British Empire, it has media that is a unionist group, and it has like the economical power, which is not very determined for independence here. So I thought it was a good place to be, and on top of that, I thought it offered an opportunity that I would get some airtime in radio, which actually happened. So in that little respect, it was a good decision.
Right. So it was a very strategic place to start, I guess. And once you started, or perhaps let's go back a little bit. Once you publicised your hunger strike by whatever means you chose to publicise it, I guess through social media, through regular media, what sort of reactions did you get? Now, we need to break this down a little bit. For example, what sort of reactions did you get from political parties, if any at all?
Well, the reactions I got were not really surprising, because remember that I was doing this to expose a situation I already knew it was deceptive. But even so, even when I was ready for it, there were some cases that were hard to stomach. For instance, CUP, which is like a party that is supposed to be for independence and anti-system and always fighting every social fight that can be, they have ignored me and attacked me for the last 3 years and a half. And I want to personalize this in the person of Ana Gabriel, which is the now leader of CUP. When I gave her a flyer explaining the reasons for my hunger strike, she mocked me, she laughed at me. I have witnesses for this. And she had 2 other members of CUP. It was in Plaça Sant Jaume, which is the square that has the town hall of Barcelona on one side and the Catalan government on the other. I just laughed at me. And members of CUP didn't show any interest in whatever I did. They've ignored me lots of times. Later than that, I met 15 members of the running corps of CUP. I told them I had done a hunger strike and I had been interned for 2 months. And they look at me like if I was a dead fish or something. And they told me, send us an email. Well, I sent an email and it hasn't been answered. So I'm sorry to say this, but the people, the grassroots of CUP, they think they're in a party which is for independence and against the system. I have to tell them that it's a party that's created for the system to protect Spain. On other fields, Oriol Junqueras, which is the deputy prime minister, is going to be the next president in Catalonia. He did a runner from me. It's the second time he does that. And he didn't let me handle the flyer to him in front of the parliament in Catalonia.
In front of the Catalan parliament?
Yes,
near the park?
Yes.
A beautiful historic building in the park.
Yes.
You actually tried to hand him a flyer about your hunger strike?
I gave more, I would say, around 100. We have 135 members in parliament. I would say I gave more than 100, including the president, Carles Puigdemont, cabinet ministers like Josep Rull and lots of others, and parliamentary members from every party, including unionist parties, and everybody showed respect to me. The only person out of 100 happens to be Oriol Junqueras, which is somebody who I met 25 years ago in university and who I've interviewed twice.
You studied with him?
Yes, but it's the second time he did a run from me, and I think it's important to say this. The first time it was in July 2015. I met him and I was speaking with him, and I told him I knew for a fact that Nicola Sturgeon is working against independence, and I told him I don't like it here because I know it's the same thing. Well, can you imagine somebody who's supposed to be the next president in Catalonia when you tell him that the president in Scotland works for the other side, and you know it's the same here? So it's quite a cinematographic moment, isn't it? And he ran away then.
He ran away. And
he ran away in front of Parliament. He doesn't want... If he ever gives me a face-to-face in television, he'll make sure he's very next to the door. So if he has to make a runner. And then I have to point here that the only person that showed respect then and then came to see me in a hospital is el señor Eduardo Reyes, which I have to say that has been the only one out of 135 members of parliament who's done his job with decency. So from here, I want to thank this dignified person.
So Eduardo Reyes, an MP in the Catalan Parliament, came to see you in hospital.
Yes, in the second hospital. There was like a misunderstanding and we didn't see one another, but he came and spoke with my doctor. Yes, and I have to say something.
He's the only member of Parliament who showed any interest in this.
Yes, but I have to say something.
Back to that later.
Oh, but it's important. We might, but I would like to say that what's important as well is that he was an observer in the Scottish referendum, and he confirms that it was rigged as referendum can be, and then everybody was coming there and taking the ballot boxes like there was no tomorrow.
Okay, so we have
for independence there wasn't tomorrow.
Eduardo Reyes, who's a current sitting member of the Catalan Parliament.
Yes.
Who's also an observer in the Scottish independence referendum 2014, and who has stated it was rigged.
Yes.
Okay. So political parties. What about the media?
Well, media, it's funny because every media in Catalonia is either public or receives a lot of public money. So any assumption of freedom of press is living in brave new world because we don't have any free media.
It's the same in the UK.
But we have to say, yeah, but I knew that. But the question is, I was putting them in a conundrum because you have to realize that almost everything you speak about in Catalonia nowadays is about the process of independence. Every little thing related to independence has a lot of attention. And then you have somebody who does a hunger strike for UDI and saying that the process is false, and they don't show any attention to it. So it's peculiar, isn't it? Just like Noticias, I think, and El Nacional, which is funny, it's the same name as the National, and it's also recently set up. They came, but they make mock interviews, and they changed everything I told them, and they make me look like I think they were part of preparing for what was to come, because they let out that I was only doing a hunger strike for 2 hours a day, and they depicted an image that has nothing to do with what I am. It was very easy for them to check that I had responsibilities in Federació Nacional d'Estudiants de Catalunya 25 years ago with the people running Catalonia.
So,
before they started depicting me.
If we can just backtrack one tiny little bit, you just mentioned that you were accused by the mainstream media here in Barcelona of doing a hunger strike for 2 hours a day. Now, does this suggest that you didn't eat for 2 hours and then you ate for the rest of the time? Or
that's what they tried to suggest. Yes, that these two media did that, and I have to say that a lot of unionist media attacked me on that. But normally when that happens, it brings a backlash of so-called pro-indie media defending one. So it's something that every day you have unionist media attacking somebody, and then there's a backlash of the Catalan media defending. Well, the only case where that hasn't happened, it's my case. When you talk about media, what's very relevant is that very first day, I appeared for 20 minutes in a mocking program, but that is the most listened to program in Catalonian radio, which is
can you
in
tell us the name
RAC1.
of that?
The station is RAC1. I don't remember.
RAC1,
It's the
so
programa
this
de Toni Clapés. RAC1,
RAC1,
which belonged to the unionist Grupo Godó. And they were talking about, and things were heard there that had never been heard before, like our leaders don't work for us, we've been betrayed by our leaders. They could make UDI and they don't do it. They're bringing us to a referendum. The Scottish referendum was rigged, and that was the first time that those things were uttered in Catalonia, and they were being uttered by somebody who's been in several political parties, somebody who shared responsibilities with the leading members, and somebody who tried to force unity or to bring about unity of four independentist parties in 2012. So normally it should have been first page.
And so, of course, this person was your good self. Back to the media. Did you get any coverage or attention from either the Scottish or the UK media?
I had a tiny article in the National, which, if I remember right, said like a nationalist ready to die for independence, which is wrong on the two assumptions. Because first, I'm not a nationalist. I'm for independence of Catalonia and Scotland and every country that is free to decide what they want. I have to say that sometimes nationalists bring us farther away from independence, because we only care about our things and we don't believe things happening on other sides, and we don't learn about ways to get independence. So it is not sometimes until we get rid of the worst kind of nationalism that we begin to understand how the world works and why it's so difficult for us to get independence. And I was not ready to die. I'd like to clarify this, sorry. Because when I knew back then that there's people threatened in Catalonia. And I knew that there's a corrupt system in which hundreds of people are suffering. So I decided that by making my hunger strike long, it would tensionate the system into a way that it might crack. So my intention was never to die in this. It was not.
Yes,
with all respect, it was not.
I'm going to come back to that a little bit later in this, okay? Because I want to return to the Scottish media.
Which kind of shows that you haven't given me the questions in advance, so it gives some reality to this
you
this interview.
Have to tell any listeners that he has no idea what questions are coming. We did go over some tentative questions, but the questions are going to be quite random and ad hoc. There was an article in the Herald, which is the sister paper of the National. Do you recall that article?
Vaguely.
Okay, it was by the chief political reporter, David Leask. You remember that one?
I remember vaguely,
no?
yes.
Okay, so you did get some coverage in the UK. Yeah. Oh, well, not the UK, but in the Scottish media.
But did they mention that I said that the Scottish referendum was rigged?
Did they?
I don't know, but if you have somebody doing a hunger strike in a foreign country saying that the Scottish referendum was rigged, that would be the normal thing to refer to, no? Somehow I don't think that.
Okay, so we've covered political parties, media. Okay, now what sort of reactions did you get? You are very, very active on social media.
Yes.
Would that be correct? Okay, you're very, very active in social media.
Mainly in Facebook. And we'll have to start being active in other media if we want to win this fight.
And on your preferred choice of social media, which is Facebook, what sort of reactions did you get from people when they learned that you were going to do a hunger strike?
Well, first I got growing support from some good faith independentists, but it also happened what I expected it would happen. I have to say here that most so-called independentist groups, both in Scotland and Catalonia, are run by people that work for our enemies. And I want to give an example here. In Catalonia, there's a lot of groups run by J.M. Bernat or Josep Maria Bernat. This person was slandering me, saying that I came in and out of a mental institution and that family members of mine and a famous panelist, Elisenda Palusia, could confirm that. That was absolute lie and it's slandering, and in due time I reserve my right to do court actions against this person. Well, this person is running two groups at least and several more, which are called República Catalana and Catalunya Lliure, which is Catalan Republic and Free Catalonia. If this person is committing terrorism against an independentist person, on the other hand, he has thousands of people in his groups who thinks that he is for independence, which he's not. So in social media, we have to realize that most people that cover their face under saltires, steladas, rampant lions, and very, very historical epic names, they might be working for the enemy. It's the same thing as if somebody with a balaclava comes inside a bar and tells you that his name is Robert the Bruce and starts defending the SNP or referendums. You wouldn't give him the time of day, but in social media we do.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. In general, on social media, did you get a lot of support?
No.
I assume that you promoted your hunger strike or publicized it through social media.
Yes, I get some support, but as I tell you, we live in a Truman Show or a Brave New World. So most of the things that we think they work for independence are just working for referendums, which is tremendously different. And for instance, in Twitter, somebody faked my account. Somebody forged my account and is spreading, so it was helping to mock my hunger strike. On top of that, I was getting people attacking me in private messages, and some weird things kept happening because my Facebook was hacked for sure, because I was getting a lot of friendship petitions, and when the light appeared and I was going to confirm, I got a message saying that the petition was not there anymore. So somebody had denied that friendship instead of me, so I didn't get a lot of people supporting me. So that's
the shenanigans of Facebook. And okay, so is there anything else about the reactions that you got from people?
No, what I got at that point was what I expected. Difficulties from everywhere, because that's what I wanted to expose. I wanted to expose that everybody running the pro-indie side is not working for independence. So actually I got what I thought. And actually, and at the 14th day, I made a video saying that I expected that anytime they might intern me with fake pretenses, which happened. I did this video 1 hour before it actually happened. So I have to say that things went as planned.
So 1 hour before it happened, it being
the 14th day, and it was Tuesday again, so we did a press conference to which nobody came. You have somebody on a hunger strike for the most important theme in your country, and nobody comes. I have to say that Jordi Basté, which is one of the most famous radio conductors, came out at the 8th day and said, well, I'm not speaking about you, because if I had to speak about every hunger strike, it would be too much. So like, well, there's not that many hunger strikes, are there?
Okay, so you were getting no attention from the media whatsoever after the first day. But
sorry, we know for a fact that TV3, which is the main television in Catalonia, the reporters wanted to talk about me. We know this from 3 different sources. And when they've been asked why don't they talk about David Raventós' hunger strike, they said, you would have to ask our bosses why we don't.
Okay, so you'd have to ask.
So it's not that they didn't have interest.
Yep.
There was censorship.
And of course, in the media, the editors hold the keys to everything. And rookie journalists might want to cover this kind of story, and they may believe in it, but the editor has the editorial rights to say, no, you're not doing this, you don't cover this, or you'll lose your job. Okay, so you just mentioned that you'd made a video on, I think you said the 14th day of the hunger strike, and this video is relevant because of something that happened later. So can you just expand on that a little bit?
Well, as nobody was coming to press conferences, because obviously somebody told everybody not to move, we were making videos of ourselves so we could hang them in YouTube. And in this video, I mentioned how I have been perceiving that they were trying to attack my mental health. So something might happen on that department, that they might try to intern me. And 1 hour after the video was made, that's what happened.
So this is quite interesting and important. So you made a video, and you say that it was to do with attacks on your state of mental health. What was your state of mental health? Had you ever had mental issues? Had you ever had cause for concern about your mental health?
No, but the question nowadays, as Nazas learned later, nowadays everything is deemed to be a mental condition. The DSM, which is the thing that has all
the
this
DSM.
list.
But at that point in time,
no. No. But I had been in contact with somebody pretty high up in WikiLeaks, and he confirmed that the usual thing they do with dissidents to try to silence them is to try to attack their mental health, because that's what you do. If you're known, they kill you, but if you're not known, they attack your mental health.
Yes, and
because
this is probably no news to the people who are listening into this program, that mental health, psychiatry, and getting rid of people is a classic marriage. But you're saying that you made a video in the absence of regular media. You made a video, and in this video you mentioned that you had been getting attacked regarding your mental health, and you suspected that you would be accosted, locked up, detained, or something was going to happen. And you now say that happened an hour later?
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Well, it was the 17th of May. May is bad news, not only for people in Great Britain, which are suffering May, but May was also bad for me last year. And it was the birthday of my daughter, who was waiting for me. I had gone to...
The 17th of May was
the 17th of May was my... That day, if you saw that in a film, you will have to bring it down a few notches, because it seems too hard to believe. It was my daughter's birthday, who was waiting for me at her mother's to celebrate that. Also, they were making a program in Catalan television about Xirinacs, which is a person who was a famous activist, which I respect tremendously, and I would never dare comparing myself to him.
So, Xirinacs, a lot of people in Scotland and other countries may not know who Xirinacs is or why you mention him.
Xirinacs is...
Can you briefly say what...
Well, Xirinacs is a person that in the 70s and 80s, he was once close to getting the Nobel Prize of Peace, because he did a lot of actions against the dictatorship of Franco, and his most normal form was to do a hunger strike, and they were making a program about him that same night. And that's the day I went to the doctor, and he told me I had to urgently go to have my levels tested.
Why did you go to the doctor?
Because normally when you do a hunger strike, you should take care of your levels, and because I didn't want to die. I was taking care of my health.
Yes, you categorically did not want to die. It was a political protest.
No, but not just a protest. It goes beyond that. It's not a protest. It's a strategic way of bringing down a dictatorship. When you have a dictatorship that pretends to be a democracy, when you do a hunger strike, you're really challenging them, because normally you're going to have access to media. So you are showing that it's a dictatorship. My action proves beyond any reasonable doubt that Catalonia and Spain are brutal dictatorships. So it's beyond protest.
Right. So okay, so we needed to elaborate on who Xirinacs is, because I suspect that most people in Scotland would not have heard of him. Some will, but most probably wouldn't. So on the 17th of May, you went to the doctor to check your levels. So you wanted to make sure that your body was okay on
Yes.
the hunger strike, which sounds to me like a pretty sensible thing to do.
Yes.
Yep. Did you have a lot of energy at that time? Were you how were you feeling?
Well, I was beginning to feel the effects of it, but I was fired up because I knew we were going to win this. I mean, I've been independentist for a very long time, and I believe in fair causes, and I felt we were going places. The pressure was building on media to talk about me, and I had conquered my fears. I mean, I knew I could go on and on and on. I mean, because I had gone the first 14 days, and I was really realizing this was going to work. So
you didn't feel the effects of lack of food?
No, sometimes I felt a bit dizzy, and sometimes, I mean, it was beginning to appear, these kind of things. But the main thing is, I arrived there. A friend dropped me there because he had something to do, and I didn't realize. And then I entered there, and immediately I felt like I was in a trap. They were talking to me as if I was an imbecile.
Mm-hmm.
And they started offering me food as if I was a naughty kid.
We need to go back. You arrived at the hospital. Which department did you go to? Did you have an appointment? Or
no, I went there. It was like
specialist?
emergencies or like
Emergencies.
Yes.
Emergencies.
And then they took some drop of blood, but then they put me in the mental ward, and they started talking to me like I was a naughty boy who didn't want to eat his cereal or something. And why don't you take a juice? Well, I took a little bit of something.
They tried to get you to have some juice.
Yes, but in a very disrespectful way. I mean, I think somebody who goes on a hunger strike is somebody who deserves respect.
So I'm likening this slightly to somebody who suffers from anorexia nervosa, who, if they had to present at hospital, they would not be patronized or treated like this. They would have been treated with sympathy and encouragement. But you say that you were.
They took away my belt.
Patronized.
They took away my belt, and they took away my mobile phone. They locked me in a glass room. They didn't tell me what was going to happen. Before that happened, immediately before that, I sent a couple of messages saying I feel I've fallen into a trap. They locked me there. After a lot of hours, 2 interns got me to an interrogation room, and they were trying me to incriminate myself. And they were asking me almost if I saw Green Man or if I thought Elvis was alive and kicking, and this kind of questions. And then somebody said, "Oh, we don't know who this Oriol Junqueras is." But
so we have two medical registrars
trying to get me to incriminate,
a major hospital in the middle of Barcelona.
Yes.
One of the most major hospitals, who did not know who Oriol Junqueras was.
Who was the deputy prime minister of Catalonia, and
asked me, suggesting that green men were following you.
Almost, yes. Like, do you feel like you've been followed here? No, what I said is I'm making pretty serious accusations about the government of this country, and that normally comes with some problems.
Right. I think we've almost got enough material for a second interview, actually, because what happened then? The hunger strike abruptly ended at this time.
No, not exactly. I mean, the question is, then I was supposed to stay a few hours there, and then finally they made me spend the night there, and then the next day they brought me to the ward with a guard there, and 48 hours after that, a Spanish judge came and decreed my forceful internment. And then the nightmare started. I wanted to keep the hunger strike. I kept it for 2 days more, but then the situation was very complex because first, nobody knew about me because I had been censored. Secondly, they said they would force feed me intravenously, where they would come a guard there and they would physically force it onto me. They said that they would do the same with medication. And then I realized that they were using the fact that I did a hunger strike to consider me insane. So for all these reasons, I realized that I needed my whole strength to fight the problems I was in, which was pretty serious. So I decided to start eating, which was done very progressively from the 17th day. That's when the hunger strike ended.
Okay, so you didn't choose to give up. You made a decision, but it was based on.
It was coercion.
The lesser of two evils.
Yes. What's the point of being there? They would have used it to say that I was mentally insane if I forced them to physically to me. So
and had you refused, the chances are you would have been fed intravenously.
No, not the chances. They told me in so many words.
They told you. Yeah. This is not unusual. Okay. So after this period, you were in hospital for a period of 4 weeks, and then 4 weeks in another hospital, and then after that, a period of repercussion. So, I guess at this point in time, you were probably feeling, and this is without the medication. I'm assuming they did not medicate you on that first night, or did they?
No, they took, I think it was after the judge had decreed me to be there. But if I can explain a bit what those 4 weeks meant.
Were you allowed to see anybody?
Well, not for 24 hours, then.
Did anybody see you on the first night? Were you totally isolated?
No, on the first night my partner came to see me, and they didn't want to let her in. And she was coming with a book, and they ran through every page. I don't know, like it felt really like being in a prison. And she insisted in being let in, and that was it.
And thereafter, a judge. You might explain to the listeners in Scotland, or I'm not sure what happens in America or wherever, but why a judge, a judicial person, was necessary to say that you should stay in hospital? Because
it's forceful, and I wasn't there on my own free will, so somebody has to determine that it's according to law. But I have to say that it's just make-believe, because you don't have access to witnesses. I had evidence in my phone that I could not produce. I didn't have a lawyer there. So this is not only about independence in Catalonia or Spain. I want to make a call for the thousands of people who are interned just to get money from inheritances from them, or Catholic sects like Opus Dei that uses this to avoid people commenting on the practices they do that, or people that are just put away because somebody decides so. And they use psychiatry as a form of prison and a way to repress political dissidents. So this is not about just independence or Catalonia or Scotland. This is about hundreds of thousands of people being interned forcefully anywhere in the world. This is for them as well.
Right. So the first hospital, and I'm aware that we might be running out of time. This is a very big story, and it has many layers to it, many parts to it, many chapters. Tell us about the first hospital. This is a hospital that you have been admitted to as an emergency patient, emergency psychiatric patient. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I really felt like a prisoner there, because for somebody like me who's ready to put life on the line for freedom, to have to ask permission to get to your toiletries, which are in a locked wardrobe, or you don't have real light in your room because it's made obscure, you cannot see the outside.
So there were no windows?
No, there's a window, but it's blackened down. Not blackened down, but it's made translucent.
Okay,
you cannot see through it. Just gets a dim light or something.
So you had no view to the external world?
I was not given privacy with my partner. She was searched like in a way nobody else was. They didn't leave me any access to see. Even when my daughter sent a message to me, they wouldn't even let me see the WhatsApp. I couldn't see my daughter for a month. I saw my partner, my sister, my brother, my nephews, and my mom, which at 88 she made the effort of coming almost every day, and I cannot be thankful enough to her. But it was a nightmare. I felt like I was in a prison, forcefully medicated, and they didn't even want me to read books because they said I read too many books.
How did that happen?
Well, because my partner brought several books. One of them was from Chirinacs, precisely, and it's a book which is relevant because it's called The Betrayal of the Leaders, which might ring avail to people listening in Scotland and Catalonia who want independence. And basically, I felt like I was in prison. Some of the nurses there, male and female, expressed to me that they didn't know why I was there, but then they wouldn't be on duty with me anymore. It's like they were moved away somewhere, so I didn't get moral support of people telling me I shouldn't be there. And the most incredible thing, it's two things: that they only talk to me about politics, which is funny because people who admitted they don't know about politics, they always wanted me to talk about politics. Also, we had somebody who came from prison who was under the...
So wait a minute. Let's stick with that. You say they? Who's they?
The doctors.
So the medical staff, or the
Yes,
nursing staff as well?
No, the psychiatrists and some of the nurses.
Okay, and they only talked about politics.
Yes.
Did they didn't talk to you about your health, your mental health, or...
But it was a bit of a...
I understand when I say mental health, everybody has mental health. There's good mental health, and there's normal mental health, and then there's problematic.
But everything was a bit of a farce, because I was there because I criticized the government, a government that pays the salary of the doctors and the hospital, and that pays the salary of the judge that decrees that I have to stay there. So it's a bit of like...
conflict of interest, really, isn't it?
Yes, but secondly, they brought somebody from prison who was under withdrawal syndrome, and he was saying that he was going to open us, all of us, and he was screaming and he was very disturbed. And then I told my doctor, I think this is ludicrous, because you bring me here, you say, to protect me from myself, but I haven't hurt myself and I haven't been a risk to nobody, and now I'm here exposed to somebody who's in this condition, who's threatening us all. So I find it very, very strange, if you ask me. And secondly, there were people there who had recently cut open their wrists, and they were given permission to go out for the weekend. Okay, I was the only person who wasn't given any permission for a month. So I was discriminated against, and so was my partner.
Mm-hmm. In this day and age, people who cut their wrists self-harming is not an unusual thing. It's quite a common thing. It's not a good thing, but it's a common thing, and it's symptomatic of other things. However, what you're saying is that other patients were given permissions to leave. So permissions in psychiatric hospitals are the permission to leave the ward and go to the canteen for coffee, or go to the beach
for the weekend,
or go home for the weekend, or even just go out of the whole hospital, which is good for mental health. And you're saying that you weren't allowed?
As far as I know, I'm the only one who wasn't for 4 weeks. Who was allowed a brief spell in the beach, which was 100 meters from the hospital, and with my sister and my brother there and my daughter. Yes, I was. That's it. And another one with my partner, briefly.
So basically you were really not given any permissions.
No.
While you were in this for 4 weeks, you virtually did not see the outside world.
Yes,
you're
right.
Restricted visitors.
Yes, my political friends were not allowed in. I only saw
but your
also
daughter wasn't allowed in.
2 persons I saw were my lawyer and the psychiatrist he allocated me, or he pushed us to accept, which happened to be not great help in this whole situation.
I need to go back to the fact that in 4 weeks you had virtually no permissions. You were kept inside without even a window to an outside world.
Yes, you're right.
Does not suggest a good mental health practice in the least. Were you on drugs at this time?
Yes. In a different mix.
Did you have a diagnosis?
Well, it kept changing from psychosis and bipolar, which
both
is
very broad spectrum diagnosis.
Yeah, something you can use.
Industry.
Yeah, you can always use them for anything. If you need to log
if you have nothing else, you can use these.
But that's not the worst thing. It's something that I would want to say as a matter of self-protection. The thing that worries me more is now I'm falsely labeled to have these things. So weird things happen in dictatorships. You know, people die run over by bicycles in Barcelona, or they commit suicide in a car and the gun is found like very far away from there. The problem is the label they've given me is coherent with me committing suicide, which I'll never will do. So I feel like I live under threat. If I appear dead at home one day, they could say it's suicide, which it won't be.
So do you feel they were trying to push you towards suicide, or trying to get you to admit that you felt suicidal?
I mean, the question is, I'm jumping to the... In the first, I was still fighting, so I didn't feel like that. But in the second hospital, where they were nicer to me, and I'm not going to say the name of the doctor, because it might put him...
We're going to talk about the second hospital later.
But possibly another day, I guess.
Absolutely.
The question is, then I started to feel like my life was empty, and I felt very, very sad. It must have been the effect of the drugs. And that's how I felt in the second hospital. They were nicer to me, but I felt worse.
So we need to stick with the first hospital for the moment. The second hospital is another chapter in this. In the first hospital, you were on medication, you had vague diagnoses, and you were discriminated against.
Yes.
You say you and your partner were discriminated against. You had medical, legal representation from a lawyer that you now say was a unionist lawyer.
Well, we have proof, we have videos where he shows this.
But how on earth did you come to have a unionist lawyer?
It was recommended through a person that is not in my environment anymore.
I guess through your drug state, if you were on psychotropic drugs, you weren't really in a fit state to choose a lawyer, and you had no communication.
No, but he had such a strong conflict of interest that he should have been away from the case himself.
Okay, all right. We're going to bring this to a close now, and we're going to reserve the second hospital, which was the following month, for another time.
But I think it's important to finish with a note of hope.
Finish very quickly on something you want to say.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be of interest to talk about the second hospital in another day, because we have so many topics to talk about in this world and in this process. But the main thing is, when I left the second hospital and I felt treated good by my doctor, for 3 months I felt like a vegetable because of medication and because I was forced to be visited by a psychiatrist. And then my partner was tremendously important, otherwise I wouldn't have managed. And on another way, my family, which they didn't know exactly how to help, but my mom and my brother and sister did their best to help in their own ways. But the most important thing is that I decided to leave medication, and I decided to leave psychiatric visits, and I started to grow stronger. And with the help of my partner, I started seeing things better. And now we are growing stronger, and we're building a movement. And what they did to me is going to be used against them. It's turning against them, because there's a lot of people who are realizing that a country where you can put away somebody that does a hunger strike is not a democracy, and it's a dictatorship. So now there's this movement, and we're going to do a peaceful revolution, and we're going to bring independence to Catalonia, and the independence of Catalonia will bring independence to Scotland in the short term.
So where to now?
Well, to infinity and beyond. But now we're going to set up a power that is going to be real independence. We're going to organize a grassroots movement.
Okay.
And we're going to bring independence to both countries.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Guanyarem. Let's do this.
This is Hadrian Radio, coming to you from Free Catalonia, a KA radio production.